So the Qwellers, the 10-member collective, has not just entered the scene, they've reshaped it. Today we're going to be talking about the Qwellers becoming more than just a rap group, how they became a culture, from their roots in KwaZulu-Natal to dominating Johannesburg, from coining their own lingo to landing big brand deals. This is their story, and more importantly, what they mean for South African hip-hop in 2025. So let's get into it and let's talk about it, right? The Qwellers started in 2022 as a movement of musicians, artists, creatives, co-founded by Lo-Fi and La Cabra. And I'd say the Qwellers began as a seed in KwaZulu-Natal, and there were a few young artists and producers who shared a similar thing and vision, which was hunger. So it wasn't hunger for bars, but it was for building something bigger than themselves. By 2023, the collective had expanded into like 10 members: Young Boy Vegeta, Blue Papi, Skatli, La Cabra, Lo-Fi, Sasti, and the Seaside Boys, the Hood Pope, and Geppetto.
Ngeke ube nayo nawe lapha ekhaya. You feel me? Into thina esinayo ehlukile. Kumele uze kithi. Mawufuna isoso uze la ekhaya.
And their early sound came in the form of their EP Super Peceza, a tight, energetic introduction that drew from Durban's underground rap but blended trap sensibilities in a way that felt fresh, raw, and unapologetically theirs. So their rise wasn't just musical, it was cultural. Their lingo, their style, their identity, it literally started turning heads.
I don't care about ukuduma phesheya, going internationally. I used to care about things like that before, like wanting to go international, making music that's gonna touch South Africa. I don't care anymore. Now I'm making music for South Africa. I'm focused on South Africa. Whoever wants to fuck with us has to come to us.
Yes.
South Africa. It's not Ngathi boss.
They bulela
I fuck with South Africa that much. I feel like it's a corner.
So one of the defining things about the Qwellers is the language they introduced, their own slang, their own click. What's the Qwo, what's the Qwa? Those actually became catchphrases. I mean, to Qwell it means to live authentically, to reject expectations, to raise the bar. I'm trying to explain this in a very, very English way. But the Q sound, the click in the Qwo and the Qwa is drawn from, Nguni languages, which for me is blending cultural heritage with modern day expression, right? But they didn't stop at words. The Qwellers brought in dance moves, gestures, visual identity that felt like a movement. Qwellfontein, their own curated events, became places where their world came alive, where the crowd learned to speak the Qwo, not just verbally, but physically, right? This isn't just a rap crew, This is a collective, a tribe, a generational moment, you know what I'm saying? And April 25, 2025, the Qwellers dropped their debut album, Egalini. The title itself is powerful. Egalini, I think, is a play on Egoli, the Zulu name for Johannesburg, right? It's not just a city for them. It's a mindset, 17 tracks split into two sides, raw, polished, soulful, aggressive, all at once. I don't know how to explain it. They enlisted heavyweight features like KO and Blackie, pulling in voices across the scene, right? Within 2 weeks, Egalini crossed 1 million streams. And that kind of number isn't just success, it's cultural validation. Their global listener base also grew. In 2024, they hit millions of streams and listened to hours across countries, right? Through Egalini, the Qwellers didn't just make an album. They declared they were here to stay, to shift the culture, and to push SA hip-hop into a new era, right? So let's talk about the commercial power they have, right? As they grew, so did they influence, not just on the street corners or clubs, but in boardrooms. Let's talk about brand deals, right? So first of all, the Betway deal, right? The Qwellers collaborated with Betway South Africa and SuperSport to launch a season anthem for the Betway Premiership, right? If you out there thinking that your favorite rapper should be MC of the year, and they not even on the radar of Betway, of ShopRite or SABC One, let's not even start this conversation, bruv. But their track Sponise became the preview show anthem, weaving in lyrics about SA football culture, referencing teams, betting, and aspiration. It was an ironic yet authentic fusion, right? A hip-hop crew giving voice to one of to SA's biggest leagues, right? And another major mention, right? Jägermeister. The Qwellers were spotted at the Jägermeister house of cool, however you pronounce that, right? Serving sound and energy, right? While there's less public detail about a formal deal, their presence at such a branded activation underscores how they've become not just cherished artists but lifestyle ambassadors aligning with global youth culture. Omega shoes, the shoe deal, but publicly it's obviously a Java, partnership. It publicly is documented as a Java partnership, but I know for a fact that Java chose the Qwellers to collaborate on Omega together, and they wanted to do this together. And for the fact that he chose them shows that he actually saw something in them. So the Qwellers appear signaling their association with the broader campaign, but it's not a Qweller-led brand deal, right? Obviously, it's Java's leading it, but just chose to work with the Qwellers, right? Still, though, their closeness to such campaigns shows how brands see them as, cultural taste makers, not just musicians, right? If we talk about why they're culturally important, right? The Qwellers, for me, right, the most important artists in SA hip hop right now has to be the Qwellers, right? So let's break it down. Authenticity and roots, their lingo, their sound, their origins. They didn't just replicate American hip hop. They rooted themselves in KwaZulu Natal traditions, isiZulu, isiXhosa influence, and township energy, bringing something deeply local yet globally understandable, right? And collectively, they're like 10 strong artists. That's very rare in modern music, especially in rap. Each member brings a different voice, but together they're a movement, not just a crew, but they're a very, very generational movement. And it's not just about one superstar. It's about building a generational legacy. At some point, I thought La Cabra was going to be the superstar. Hey, nangu Mfano Hlaza wenze ezinye, nangu Mabulala. Now it's just going crazy. You know what I'm saying? But their cultural innovation, they didn't borrow the culture. They built their own culture, bro. Toilet lingo, Fontaine gatherings, dance moves, their visual identity. These are innovations that people don't just listen to, they live by, right? And their commercial influence without selling out who they are. You feel me? They're not selling out who they are, right? But they managed to do the Betway anthem, Jägermeister activation, and other brand alignments. They've shown how hip hop and Mzansi can be lucrative, but also stay authentic. They didn't compromise their voice to go commercial, right? And brands kind of like leaned into them and leaned into their style. So the streaming and recognition as well. Their debut album going over 1 million streams in 2 days. That's crazy. Their global listener reach is crazy. They're proving that SA hip hop isn't niche. It's competitive on the world stage as well, right? And as La Cabra said, he said, if bafuni sauce, kuzomele baze ngapha ekhaya, bazoyilanda la ekhaya. Not for us to do the music they make and deliver it there. No, bazoyilanda la sauce.
In terms of the culture right now, dog, I honestly feel like the Qwellers made it way more exciting. And I think I will forever say this, man. The Qwellers really made the game more exciting. In terms of hip hop, I've never been so intrigued. Unless we're talking about the old days of AKA and Cas.
So, in terms of accolades, while they're relatively new, the Qwellers are already making major waves. They made the Audio Mac Africa Afro Hip Hop playlist cover. Their Spotify growth in a year, they celebrated 829,000 monthly listeners, over 4 million streams, and 264,000 hours of playtime across 172 countries, right? Their events like Fontaine have become cultural moments, not just concerts, raising their profile beyond just rap into community building, right? And they always sold out. And their future with, obviously Ekalini, they've set a blueprint. There's more collabs that have been coming through. There's more collabs coming on the way, possibly their own festivals, more brand partnerships. Their movement isn't just about making hits, guys. It's about defining South African hip-hop's next chapter. And Qwellers are they very interactive, with everything they do. The Qwellers didn't just come to party. They've built they've kind of built their own venue in hip hop, their own language, style, energy, and ambition. They remind us that hip hop in South Africa isn't just, imported culture. It's ours and it's evolving in our terms, right? And they represent a generation that's bold, rooted, and unafraid to rewrite the rules. And right now in 2025, the Qwellers are more than artists, they are the culture.